Okay, I'm calling the meeting back to order. Welcome everyone to the Amery School District Board meeting. And we will start out with the Spotlight on Education, which is the solo ensemble, and Mrs. Badman.
Before they sing, I will just introduce both of them. To be honest, I asked both of these events to come before Tuesday of last week, which was our solo ensemble contest, and I had, just because I thought they would be the most entertaining for you, and then it all kind of fell into place because at the contest itself, Allie is going first. This is Alliana Hoyer, and she is singing "Hit Me with a Hot Note." And she ended up, both of these two events, the guys and Allie, both received a perfect rating at contest. And Allie, better than that, received, each judge there were 9 sites, and each judge is given the opportunity to recognize one of his events as the best in site, and she also received best in site. So you might understand. Her judge is, he actually is a retired choir director from, and it was a he. That's kind of the main ingredient I want you to hear before you see her perform. Okay, so here, this is Allie, and she's going to be singing "Hit Me with a Hot Note," and then I'll talk about those guys before they sing. And then we'll have a group of 10, and all 10 of them are here. I'm so impressed on this day that they, social way we can contact each other. Come on in, guys. I'm going to let them introduce themselves because there are 10 of them. And they, too, received a perfect score. Both of these, by the way, will be singing again down at State, which is at UW-Eau Claire, because they both, with their perfect scores, received state ratings. So I will let them introduce themselves. They're going to be singing a piece called "Ball Game."
Can we, let's go over here. I want to that'd be nice.
Is this on?
Yes. You don't have to be a solo act, so yeah, we'll turn it so that.
Is this thing on?
I don't also want it.
Okay. Introduce yourselves, please.
I'm Sam.
I'm Ryan, Bennett, Brett, Zach, James, Chase,
Bauer.
They are singing ball game.
Sketch Jacks, fresh toasted peanuts. Hot dogs, donuts, Sketch Jacks, fresh toasted peanuts. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I never get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Cracker Jacks, Cracker Jacks, hot dogs. Casey was baseball mad, had a fever and had it bad. Just do for the hometown crew. Katie spent every cent. On a Saturday, her young beau called to see if she'd like to go to see a show, but Miss Kate said no. I'll tell you what you can do. You can take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Why don't you buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks and hot dogs? I don't care if I never get back. Never get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Yes, it's 1, strike 1, 2, strike 2. It's a home run at the old ball game. Play ball.
Nice job. Nice job, man. Nice job, boys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for coming. Thanks, guys. You guys awesome. Great job. Thank you. Serious guys, awesome job. Thank you.
That was just absolutely.
Congratulations, guys. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mrs. Batman. That is so great. That's such a great program. Oh,
Nice job.
yes.
Hey, Cheryl. Is there any?
All right, now we will go to the consent agenda items. I had the vouchers, and I will make a motion to approve them.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, next on the agenda is community comments. I didn't see anybody's name on the community comment list up there, but I do know that Lynn would like to make a statement.
I would.
So go ahead.
Thank you. I have to read because I literally, I'm concerned that I'll forget what I want to say. So I apologize if I don't look up as much as I should. As most of you know, this is my last school board meeting as an elected school board member. I swore I wouldn't do that. I wish to tell everyone in our district a heartfelt thank you for choosing to elect me the past 9 years to the school board. We have gone through some great times, such as the recent referendum passing, some difficult times, and, well, changes from our state government and school funding, voucher schools. It's been an honor to sit on the board and to see how everyone comes together to assure a balanced budget while still having and reaching the highest education goals. I believe and trust in our present board. I will support our present board and the 2 new school board members as they embark on this term, and pray they also have the students, staff, and community in mind as they make the difficult decisions that will come over these next 3 years. I want to say God bless you all, and thank you again for your faith in me the past 9 years.
The next item on the agenda are administrative committee department reports.
Okay, administrators, building administrators, if you'd like to go ahead.
We don't have official results in because we have all ACT scores besides 2 makeup tests. We achieved, as it stands, a 21.1 ACT score, which would put us, if you use last year's numbers, which I know isn't exact science, would put us in the top 15% of the state, would probably put us second in the conference. We last year had a score of 22.6, so we were not there, but it's almost like you're comparing yourself to a very high bar. And you can't look at that and say, well, you didn't do very well. Well, we did very well. We just didn't do as well as the year prior. So 21.1 as it stands right now, and 2 scores probably aren't going to bring us down or up very far. And then it's 2 scores of 115 scores. We had 10 kids score above 30. We had 2 35s. We almost had 36s in 2 cases. And again, we haven't had a 36 in the history of the school. And I think that's about it on ACT. I would rattle off the upcoming events in the months of April and May for high school, but that would take a very long time. So I'll just start with the next one. And as I said to Bob Zank on the radio this morning, there is no snow contingency for prom, which is next Saturday. So hopefully we will be done with the snow down. We'll be able to have a prom without snow. But I think it's still going to be sitting there when we arrive on Saturday. So prom this Saturday.
I kind of second what Mr. Derfler here said, that the events in April and May are multiple. A couple of the things that we're right now, district-wide, we're in the middle of the forward state test, which is the state test, primary state test for grades 3 through 8. We do have some 10th grade taken social studies. And we're right in the middle of that right now, and that's a big endeavor, and so we're glad when a couple of weeks we'll be done with that. We have some big choir and fine art shows coming up. One big event is our 8th grade college visit day. It's one of the first days where we take all our students out and bring them onto campuses. Primary between a 4-year and 2-year, we're going to be going up to at this next trip, going up to take a look at WITC and showing those students what that campus looks like. I think it's important that we start getting them, and we have been for many years, getting them out to take a look at these institutions as they get that seed in their head before they start their 4 years of high school. So we're excited for that.
I would just follow up with, yes, my building 2, the 3rd through 5th grade, were involved in the forward test, and we tried something new this year. We tested everyone in 1 week. Instead, in the past, we've done 3 weeks, a week for each, but it just involved so much time and took away from classroom instruction so much that we tried to do it all last week, and it was successful. We do have 4th graders that will be taking their social studies and science portion because they have more than the other 2 grades, but definitely it was a success, and we tried it as a pilot program. So thank you to the teachers for doing that. We also had our Amery Intermediate Art and Academic Fair was on April 9th, and it was very successful. This is an endeavor that both the Amery IPO, that's our parents organization, and the teachers work collaboratively together. It was a wonderful night, lots and lots of people. And then we have beginning band sign up every spring that comes around the corner. And so that is on April 23rd. And the current 5th grade band and 4th grade recorder students will play that night. And then students can sign up for band for next year.
Okay. Leon Elementary School is presently in the process of accepting registrations for our 4K program. It's an all-day, everyday program, and registrations are coming in nicely this year. What I want to share this evening, in addition to that, is that in May we are going to host a new format for introducing our 4K families and their children to the 4K program. We are going to have an orientation that's going to be very engaging. It's going to, families will be able to choose between one of 4 sessions that will be taking place on May 17th and on May 18th. Families will meet the child will actually meet their teacher. They will go into the classroom, participate in the learning environment. The teacher will meet with the families and let them know about the program. And then a new twist to this is we are going to have an open house format in our cafeteria where we're going to have several booths available for families to visit. And at every booth, the child is going to receive a book or a power-up water bottle or some kind of little token because we want to encourage families to attend all of the booths. Examples of the booths are we are going to have a future warrior where Cahill Photography is going to come in and take pictures of our new 4K children. All of our 4K children will receive a warrior t-shirt. The Amery Public Library is going to be present. We're going to have representatives from the Amery Hospital, including Terry Colrush and Dr. Laura Smith. There will be recreational opportunities. There will be our food service, a registration booth, just a lot of information and places for families to visit. And in the end, I haven't approved this yet with Billy, our transportation supervisor, but we hope to give a little tour of our campus at the end and giving all of the families and their child a ride on the school bus. So we're really excited about it. So keep your eyes and ears open for the registration letter that will soon be coming in your mailbox. Thank you.
I wanted to share about the Wisconsin State Parent Educator Initiative. It was supposed to have been conducted at a conference on Saturday of last week. It is this next Saturday, the 21st. It's at the Barron High School. It's free. We hosted Keys to Success another year, and it's an absolutely excellent opportunity for parents. I'm going to just give you a little idea of some of the sessions they're having. Mental health issues and how we can make a difference, supporting children with mental health needs at home and in the classroom, shedding light on the sibling experience, social and emotional learning of children 0 to 8, nuts and bolts of IEPs, building bridges to adult health care, family-school partnerships, and hear the experts on individuals with mental health challenges share their stories. So the workshop is for both families who maybe have children that are struggling, but actually the information is great for all families as well as families with disabilities. And again, it's at the Barron High School this weekend on Saturday. The time is 8 to 3. It's really excellent. Thank you.
Thank you for the reports. Now we'll move on to informational items. The first two.
I have a little bit that I can still.
Oh, okay.
That's all right. Okay. I just wanted to mention a couple of things. Great job by our administrators. A couple of things I wanted to point out is we did have a membership audit again this year. We were chosen for a membership audit and had 0 findings, so I want to praise Susie Thayer for doing a fabulous job as the district enrollment coordinator secretary for this year. We have WASB new school board member meeting tomorrow night. That is at Spooner, and there may be some new board members attending. We also have the insurance had a insurance renewal meeting earlier this week, and we welcome Stacy running here from J Counter. And I will ask also if that could possibly be moved up on the agenda, because that way we can go through her presentation and take care of that, if you would consider that, Madam Chair. We did over 7 hours of interviews today, even though we had a snow day. We had interviews scheduled for Pupil Services Director and did our first round of interviews, and we will be doing final interviews in the near future. Also sent a letter for $750,000 safety grant, a letter of interest to the Department of Justice for a safety grant, and we'll be completing that grant. And there's also another grant. There were actually 9 90 bills that Governor Walker was considering signing last week before the legislature goes into recess until next fall, and quite a few of them, several of them were K-12 education bills. So I just wanted to mention that as part of the legislative update as well. Thank you. Do you want to consider that, Stacy?
Okay, so you're done commenting on the informational items now?
Yes.
Okay, so now we'll move on to the action items. Does anyone have an opposition to putting employee insurance plans and rates first?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, there's more information stuff we'll come back to. But
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for having me. My name is Stacy Running, and I work with the district. I'm an employee of J.A. Counter. So the purpose of my visit today is just to give you some overview on the medical insurance renewal with Health Partners, and also talk about the dental renewal. I did send out just a copy of all of my notes. I know it was a pretty elaborate piece of documentation, but I wanted to make sure that you had all of the details on the current plan design situation, get you up to speed with the renewal considerations, and then some recommendations based on a conversation that I had with Jim, Twyla, and Paulette earlier in the week. So before I dig in, did you have any questions immediately on the document that was sent out?
Not immediately, but I'm sure once you get into it.
Okay.
we'll-
So would you like me to read through the entire document, or do you want me to focus on the recommendations?
Maybe read through
I think
it.
we
Okay.
need to read through it all.
Or-
All right.
so we
I don't know, do we
understand all the
need,
options.
do we need all the?
Can you summarize them?
Word for
Sure.
word.
Please, thank you.
I will summarize.
Steve,
Okay.
maybe just start out by just mentioning for everybody that's here that the benefits, we're looking at not making any changes to
That is
the-
true. So you may recall, we moved to Health Partners in 2015. We did enter into a letter of agreement with them, which provided some upside protection for the district in the form of rate caps. So right now, we are in the midst of an agreement, which means that we don't have the option to look at other vendors this year. As it turns out, that's working to your benefit, because when we look at your claims trend, you are trending upwards. In fact, your costs, as far as claims go, have increased 20% in the last 12 months. So the calculated renewal, when they go through the actuarial process and look at claims paid versus premium captured, warranted a 20% increase for the district. So the fact that you have a 9% cap in place is really a nice thing to have this year. There has been a change in some ACA taxes and fees, which means that Health Partners is giving you a benefit for that. So instead of having a 9% adjustment, the adjustment will be just over 7%. Okay. So that's what we're looking at. It's 7% across two plans, because you've got a traditional plan, which is a copay type plan, and then a high deductible health plan, which works in conjunction with an HSA. An option that we have to consider would be to extend that agreement with Health Partners for one additional year, and by doing that, they will reduce that 7% increase down to just over 5%, 5.12%. So the benefit to you, obviously, is that it's got that maximum increase next year of 9%, and it gives you a 2% savings this year. One potential downfall is that it does prevent you from going to market, so you wouldn't have the option to look at other vendors again next year. So in my discussion with Jim and the team in the district office, what we looked at was, what are the costs if we renew on these two plans just as we are? What are the costs if we renew on these two plans and extend the letter of agreement? And then what if we change things up a little bit? Because what we told staff last year was it would be the last year for the traditional plan, and that coming this year we would move to HSA alone. And the reason why that was the direction to go is if we look at what's happening in your claims experience, the experience on that traditional plan is really driving the experience for your group. So it's causing your rates to go, or your experience to be higher, which in theory would make your rates go up, but you've got those caps to offset it. So the recommendation, based on my discussion with Jim and his team, was to extend the letter of agreement and go down to a single plan design, being the HSA plan, or that high deductible health plan that works in conjunction with the HSA. So that is on page 3 of your document. It's called Renewal Option 4. If you choose to go that way, what happens then is that there becomes a single plan design. And because of that, and because of the fact that that high deductible health plan has a lower rate, you actually save, based on current enrollment, just under $10,000 in health insurance premium. Your HSA spend, or the money that the district puts into HSA accounts, goes up by $91,000 because now you've got more people potentially getting those contributions. But your overall increase is about $81,000 as opposed to what would have been $117,000 if you renewed on the 2 plan designs. So that's the direction that we looked at, but I welcome any questions that anybody has.
I believe actually we did this over a couple of years period.
Mm-hmm.
We started letting everybody know several years ago that we're going to go in this direction.
True.
And then last year we said that this was the direction we were going to go to finalize it. So I think that that's the right step to continue with what we put in place, knowing that we were going to be getting better rates,
Right.
and hopefully making sure that everybody is a good consumer
True.
of their medical.
Which the high deductible health plan does tend to help with that. One thing that I think is important to consider, and it is outlined in the document, is that not everybody will be eligible for HSA contributions. The IRS does stipulate on who can get those. And so for some of your employees, they won't be eligible. And what we talked about doing to help offset that additional exposure for those folks would be to give them an opportunity to purchase critical illness or accident coverage. So in the event that they were diagnosed with a critical illness, they would receive a cash benefit paid to them, which they could in turn use for their deductible if they needed to. In the event of an accident, if you had somebody who was injured as a result of an accident, there would be cash payments for any medical services received as a result of that accident, which they then could use for their deductible if needed.
And that's the stuff on page 5?
That is on page 5.
And why is it some people would be not eligible for an HSA?
That's a great question. So the IRS actually outlays the eligibility rules, and essentially they say that anybody who has first dollar coverage is not eligible for HSA contributions. So first dollar coverage could be Medicare or Medicaid. It could be TRICARE or VA benefits for anybody who was in the armed forces. A traditional flexible spending account would also make somebody not eligible, but it's all defined by the IRS.
Okay. And do we know how many people that would affect?
There's really no way of knowing.
Okay.
But if they're not, if they are affected by this and are unable to take an HSA contribution, then the school district would not be paying $1,200.
True.
Correct?
That would be a savings for the district.
So then, I don't know how much this critical illness and accident protection costs, but the school district could potentially contribute up $1,200 to that insurance, correct?
Yeah, I think you'd have to be careful in covering critical illness or accident for some and not all.
Oh,
So I
okay.
think if you wanted to cover the critical illness and accident premiums, you certainly could, but I don't know that I would limit it.
I'm just trying to think of a way to make it fair to somebody who's not eligible to receive this money that everybody else is getting.
Now, one point of information I'd like to make is we looked at the number of employees, and those that would not be eligible for the HSA, we found 2. There would be just 2 so far, but we, as Stacy said, we can't know every single one because of the other factors. But based on age, there would be 2 that would be aged out. I can say that, right?
Would be on Medicare.
That would, yeah, that would not be eligible
They have
due
the
to
option to be Medicare, they don't have to
Medicare.
choose it.
True.
See,
Right.
what, another thing to remember is, just because people are of the age to receive Medicare does not mean they have chosen to take it yet. So that wouldn't affect them if they have chosen not to take it yet.
Okay.
Correct, but it affects whether they're eligible for a contribution into an HSA, which is what I was talking about.
Right.
And we've talked about we can't make a contribution specifically to those 2 employees, but there are other ways that the district may consider compensation that are unrelated.
So, but in this high deductible health plan, you're still talking about the high deductible is $5,400 for a family.
For a family.
$2,700.
Yeah.
I really don't think that's that
So
high.
the difference
personally.
between, if you look at the traditional plan, it's a $2,000 individual deductible versus a $2,700 deductible on the HSA. It's a $4,000 family versus 52. So it's not a big difference, but I recognize that it is an issue for some, potentially.
Well, and with the markets being a single 6,000,
Yes.
and that's like the good ones.
That's a good deductible.
Yeah.
And then the health savings for those that are eligible, is that something that they have to spend out each year, or will it roll over?
Great question. They don't. So any funds that go into the health savings account are owned by the account holder. So they could, in theory, roll them over year and
cover
use
your
them
deductible.
for expenses in retirement. Yes.
Yep, so you have your medical expenses for your retirement, your long-term.
That's very generous.
So for the past 2 years, employees have had the choice. Do you know what the
I do know what the
percentages
breakout
are
is.
between what people are choosing?
Yep. So currently, you've got 44 employees on that traditional plan, and there are 165 employees on the high deductible health plan.
So most people are choosing this high
Most people are
deductible to
choosing,
begin with?
yes.
All right.
Any other
And what would be
questions?
the benefit if we chose the high deductible health plan and agreed versus not agree to an additional 1-year letter of agreement?
So it is a 2% swing, so it's probably about $50,000.
And as we had discussed, the way that the usage has been trending, it's been a 20-some% uptick. We figured as a district office, we had contemplated the figures, and it's probably to our advantage to lock it in due
Yeah,
to the
so-
trend of the,
To extend it for another year.
to extend it
right?
for
Yes.
another year.
So if we didn't, Chelsea, just to answer your question, so without the extension, it brings that premium up about just under $40,000. If we go to HSA alone.
Is there a way, I think that this is on, I guess I would like to, point out page number 4 and bring it up on the screen for everybody, because I had talked to you about this chart, and I think it's important for everybody to see that how employees will be impacted.
Do you have the electronic copy, Jim, that you could bring up?
It'll take a moment to.
Okay.
I'll get it to Cheryl and she can put it up.
While they're bringing that up, I would like to add that extending the letter of agreement with Health Partners is also in that we have a really good relationship with Health Partners. They're very, very supportive of the school in not just staff, but they're helping with that Power Up
Power
or
Up.
Munch guy and you know that
Yeah.
Power up.
Chomp. I'm sorry. They're very, very supportive in helping with donations and grants. And with our history ticking up, having that relationship with them, I don't think is a bad idea in just extending that. That's just another idea.
No.
They work really well with us, too.
One more thing to add to that, it is a maximum of 9% next year. What that means is if it does come in less, we pay less.
That is a good point.
So that is
yes.
just what the maximum would be. So if it does come in less, we would pay whatever the less amount would be.
And if there are any changes to the ACA taxes or fees, that would reflect as well, just like it is this year.
If I
go
may
ahead.
just make one point
Sure.
of information, we're talking about this because, here at the board meeting, taking this time because we have about $2.9 million in insurance costs to the district with the HSA, the premiums, and employee and employer contribution. The district pays 88% of premiums, which is pretty standard across the state. But it is the second most significant portion of our annual budget.
So what I attempted to illustrate here is just to show how employees would be impacted by the change from dual option to a single plan. So what I've got here is a side-by-side comparison for anybody who's enrolled in that traditional plan today, assuming that they would need to go to the HSA plan this coming year, I guess will be July. And again, assuming that they are eligible for those HSA contributions. So if we look on the far left side, I'm sorry, I'm in your way here, but in this column here, the annual premium that those folks are paying, assuming an 88% contribution from the district, is $1,230 if they've got single coverage. If they have family coverage, they're paying about $2,700 per year in premium. Now, worst case scenario, so less than 20% of the population would ever hit their worst case scenario, but let's assume that they did, and they hit their deductible and out of pocket of $2,000 for single or $4,000 for family. Today, that person would have a maximum exposure, if I look at premium and out of pocket expense, of $3,230 if they're single or have a single policy, and $6,700 if they've got families. So what happens this coming year then is they're actually going to see less of a reduction in premiums from their check. Their premium goes down because their deductible goes up. So they're saving, you can see here, $170 or $372 in premium. They do have a slightly higher deductible, but they will get that HSA contribution, assuming that they're eligible, to offset those deductible expenses, which means their maximum exposure is actually less. Okay, so in the event that they're like the majority, where they don't have many non-preventive services, these dollars stay in their health savings account. So instead of going to the insurance company, they stay in their health savings account and roll over year over year. Okay.
So now I did notice it said employees who choose not to participate in the wellness program would have an additional 500 individual or 1,000 family exposure.
That is true.
Under this plan.
That is
so
true.
So that's encouraging everyone to participate in the wellness program.
Yes.
Now, is that something that are they eligible just if they fill out a survey and?
So what happens today is any employee who's enrolled in your medical plan, they were invited to do a confidential health assessment and to participate in a healthy activity. And there were several activities that they could choose from. If they participated, then this is what their exposure will be. If they chose not to participate, then they will have a deductible and out of pocket. That's $500 more if they've got single coverage and $1,000 more if they've got family. That was what the board voted on last year. So you're correct that these amounts would be different for anybody who chose not to participate. They'll have a new opportunity, though. So come fall, we'll invite them again to do the health assessment and a program. We also will invite their spouse, because that was the strategy we talked about, that we would invite employees in year 1, spouses in year 2. So assuming that the employee and their spouse participate in the assessment and the program, then they will have that differential for the 2019 plan year. So we're always working in the current year for a benefit in the next. Any other questions?
We did have a very high participation rate, not 100%, but a very high rate of participation for the health assessment and participation.
Yeah.
I have a question that was asked to me by some retirees, and this has nothing to do with this. I just thought since you're here and I was asked, I would ask this. They're entitled to COBRA after they retire if they retired within a certain amount of time, and once that expires and they're not 65, they have to go on private pay. And so I guess I was just wondering if there's a way to create a group plan as a pool for retirees, so they could get on insurance policy, but they would pay 100%, so it wouldn't affect, the current employee's exposure, experience, and also it wouldn't affect taxpayers because they would be paid 100% of the premium. So I was just wondering if that's possible.
Sure, so there's a couple things you can do. So first, COBRA is going to be an option for anybody who is on your plan and leaves, regardless of if it's termination or retirement. So if you wanted to do something special for retirees, you could potentially, allow them to stay on your active employee plan. One potential risk of that is when we're retired, we tend to have more claims than we do when we're younger and working. So in my experience, that retiree population, I would say on average, is spending 120% of what they're paying in premium. So what that means basically is it's going to drive your trend, in the opposite direction of where you want it to go. You could potentially have a separate group specific to retirees. In order to have a group plan, though, there does have to be at least a 50% contribution from the district for it. So assuming that the district didn't want to bear some burden of the premium, then a group plan may not be, a viable option. And then obviously there's the market, if folks wanted to go to the market, which could be beneficial to some because of the subsidies that are offered, depending on what their income level is. That might be a good way for them to go.
Thank you, that answered my question. Do you guys have any more questions, or should we?
I'd like to make a motion.
All right, what is?
My motion is to go with the recommendation of number 1, signing for another year.
Okay.
And renewal number 4, to go no longer with the traditional, back with the HSA, and to continue with the cap. So drop the 2%, continue with the cap at 9% for the next year.
Is there any discussion on this?
So that's renewal option number 4.
Right.
Correct.
Yes, got it.
Is that a second,
Yes,
or do you want
that
to
is a second. I will second that. I will second that, yes.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So just a couple other things before I go. As far as the critical illness and accident, would you like to roll that out as a voluntary option for folks who may need to offset their exposure?
Since it is voluntary, I have no problems with that. It's up to them.
Okay.
And that's covered by the employee.
The employee would pay the premium, yes, through payroll deduction. So it does involve, payroll deduction, but it's no hard dollar cost to the district. Okay. And then the only other thing that I wanted to mention was that we did get the dental renewal. Your dental plan is working very well for your employees. They're taking good advantage of it. But the loss ratio is not good because they are, taking such good advantage of it. So for this year, the needed increase was actually 23%. We've been able to secure a 9% increase for the upcoming year if you wanted to stay with Health Partners. So rather than getting the 23, which it calculated at, you would keep the 9, no changes to the plan design.
Stacy, if I may just point out that I think it's about $22,000 premium increase. So the
It will be,
9%
yes.
sounds, it's not a lot of money in comparison to the health insurance piece.
There's a total of about 22,000, and based on that 88% contribution, it's about 19,500 for the district. And the rest is shared by employees. This is on page 6.
And so that's something separate we need to vote on is the dental plan.
Yeah, we can do a motion for the critical illness and accident production.
We can do it together. We can do them together.
Oh, we can do it together. So with the dental, is there, you stated that we would get a benefit for another 1-year agreement with that?
We don't have the option to put a letter of agreement in place, but we have been able to work with Health Partners in order to secure a 9% for 2017 versus the 23% calculated, but it doesn't include any caps for next year.
9% for 2018 for next year.
Yep, 9% for 2018, no cap for 2019. Yes. Sorry.
I'll make the
This year,
motion.
next year.
I'd like to make the motion as printed here. Did you have questions? Did I interrupt you?
Just one question. So the dental, we're not, I mean, if we make a motion and it's approved to go with your dental, we would be able to revisit whether we want to have dental next year because there is no one-year letter agreement. We could actually.
That is true. You could
Okay.
look at other
Okay.
options next year.
All right, I'll second that motion. Or
Can I just wanted to finish and say I'd also
Okay.
like to allow the voluntary services as well.
yes.
Accidental critical illness.
Okay.
Is there any discussion? All in favor for critical illness and accident protection and the dental motions, say aye.
Aye.
Well, we'll get busy
Are we done?
pulling together the communication. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for all your work.
Okay, do you want to go back to the informational items, or do you want to start at the top of?
Why don't you?
All right, we're going to go backwards a little bit to the information items, the strategic plan update.
I guess, did I mention enrollment? I just wanted to say that effective April 13th, Friday the 13th, our enrollment was 1,535, the exact same number, I believe, at the beginning of the school year. Typically, it drops off a little bit, but our enrollment has been consistent. So that's all I have for enrollment report.
Okay. So then we'll move on to the strategic plan update, and that is going to be presented by Mr. Wallen and Mr. Melberg.
All right, Clint and I are here to present on the strategic plan, the portion of student achievement and technology. Just to give you our overarching goal as far as student achievement goes is a summary of it is a college and career readiness through academic opportunity. So there's a few areas that this group targeted, and I just want to highlight what's been happening in those areas over the last 3 years. One of those areas was AP testing. When we started this process, we did very well as far as a pass rate in AP testing, but as far as the conference goes, we didn't give as many tests as other schools did. In the last 3 years, we've increased those numbers significantly. Sean, was it 95 this year?
95 this year,
80.
72 the year before, and 96 the year before that. And prior to that, it was usually about 15 or 20.
So we've seen an increase. With that, a little bit of a drop last year with...
Last year, we dropped the pass rate nationally is about 62, 63%. Typically, we were in the upper 60s, low 70s. When we increased from the upper teens into the 90s, our pass rate dropped about 10, 15% to about 57%. So we were just below within. The next year, we crept back up into the 60s at 62%.
But at the same time, more students, more opportunity, more college readiness by taking these AP classes. In addition to that, for the 2018-19 school year, we'll have 2 additional AP classes offered, AP Chemistry and AP Psych. So we'll go from, I believe, 7 classes offered in advanced placement to 9. Outside of advanced placement, we also have youth apprenticeship. We had 74 students gain valuable workplace skills this year by working through our youth apprenticeship. Next fall, Mr. Ganji's class will be building a house. So as far as college and career readiness, we're getting hands-on experience in the work field, as well as Mr. Myers full speed ahead with his aquaponics. So all of these things are giving kids unique opportunities to prepare themselves for life after high school. So that's all I have.
Also, we have catering as well.
Oh, excuse me,
Don't
yes,
forget
the catering as well.
The technology side of the strategic plan was basically to review, have committee meetings, and assess what resources that the students need within the district. And first 2 steps are basically just ongoing committee meetings, discussing what we need, inventory, and then assessing, and then coming to a conclusion on what we want to purchase. The third step is the pretty big one. With the passing of the referendum last year, we're able to update 5 key areas with the technology. One was updating one-to-one with the high school and implementing one-to-one with the middle school, and that was with a 2-in-1 laptop. So the students can take advantage of a laptop and a tablet at the same time. And when we did those laptops, we ordered pens with them as well. And the pens have been, the kids just love them pens. It's a great accessory for them to have them pens. And they're available in checkout in the library. The second was updating all staff devices. Teachers and administration, they get the same device as the high school and middle school students. And the rest of the staff, your office and aides, they get regular workstations. So that's all been upgraded as well. The third, we replaced all our 8-year-old Promethean boards in the district. Those boards were so dim with the lights off, you could barely use them. That's how bad they were. So we upgraded those with 70-inch interactive TVs. And those are LED TVs. And last time I replaced a TV that was dim, I've never replaced a TV that was dim. So they should last quite a while. The third would be the influx of all these devices. Our infrastructure, the wireless infrastructure, needed to be more robust. And so we implemented a Cisco-managed wireless system, and then we actually added more APs within the district. So right now we're about 98% coverage. And we're able to grow, expand our devices with that wireless infrastructure that we added. And then last but not least, we updated our aging servers, the infrastructure of our servers, and those were probably around 6 years old, 5 to 6 years old. We did the hyperconverge, and I'm not going to get technical with you, but basically it's 2 physical servers that we took all our servers and put them on there, and then we have 1 physical one sitting at the middle school. So if one of these at the high school fail, the one at the middle school pick up the work. If they both fail at the high school, in theory, the one at the middle school should do it, but it'll be a little slower. So we're kind of redundant that way. And with passing a referendum, $500,000 has been allocated to the technology budget for these purchases. And with committee discussions, the long-range goal is devices to be on a 3-year rotation, and the infrastructure, your servers and switches and wireless and Promethean or interactive boards, they'd be on a 5-year rotation. So it all in at one shot and drown in the IT department, but in a nutshell. But in case you're wondering, I didn't mention nothing much about elementary and intermediate one-to-one. That we're looking at that right now, reviewing that, and that would be a purchase for next year. We're looking at getting bids right now. So, any questions?
What would be the advantage of doing one-to-one in the intermediate and elementary school? And would that be something that they would keep at the school, or would that be something that would be going home?
Depends on the building and the grade level.
Okay. What do we see as the advantage of having one-to-one in those grades?
I would say accessibility to the applications. They're part of the curriculum. For example, we have a math program that is built into our block, which is during the teacher's PLC time. And so our students would be able to access that program, all of them at the same time. One example. But it takes place throughout the entire day.
Yes. Reading and math. Our reading books in Houghton Mifflin are on applications that are either iPad or device math as well. So lots of our program support they could access.
Everything is going more cloud-based, internet-based, and you have to have a device. And if their kids are in the lab using the computers in the lab, then the other kids are not getting that opportunity too. Times are changing fast.
With that being said, though, I want to make sure that we also communicate that children will not be in front of an iPad all day long. No. That screen time, there's research that will say that's not good for our children, too. So we use it intermittently throughout the day, and sometimes of the year more than others. We also use a program, why can't I think of that program, the parent communication program? Seesaw, thank you. Seesaw is a program that our children are directly connected to their families, and they can communicate and demonstrate their work on a daily basis. So the children use that quite regularly, especially in first and second grade, and we will expand that to the other grade levels as well.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we are back to action items.
Nope, there's one more.
Student engagement and
At-risk.
at-risk coordinator.
All right, sorry. I'm new at this. All right, next, student engagement.
Okay, I'm going to need Clint to help me connect. Just a second.
I tried to mouth it to her, but she
Or Windows P works.
Okay, so we changed our agenda a little bit today, so I apologize. We wanted to update you on the student engagement strategic plan, which we do have some handouts for you as it relates to that. But Mr. Kukta gave us permission to come and talk to you today about probably one of the biggest initiatives that came out of that, and that was a recommendation to hire an at-risk coordinator. So this is informational, obviously not an action item, really to build, again, understanding of what this committee is asking for. And we have a plan presentation that actually we did with the administrative team. So I just, here we go. Let me go ahead and start.
So basically, as Cheryl said, our student engagement committee did a lot of work for the last several years, and one of the big things that we realized was that we have a lot of student need. Hold on, bear with me here. There we go. So what we found out is that the makeup of our students has changed dramatically over the last 10 to 15 years. We're seeing very different kids coming into the schools. They have more needs, they have more challenges at home, more struggles.
Can I ask a favor? Can I ask you to speak in the microphone so that
Sure.
everybody at home can hear
Sure.
too? Thank you.
And so our students have more skills, skill deficits than ever before. And so our committee, as we were working through our action items, you can see what we've been working on so far in the smaller packet that we gave you. But really it came down to the fact that there was just too big of a student need for us to currently address. And so we had come up with a recommendation that we need some more help with the at-risk student population. And so this is basically what we would like to talk with you about the rest of the night. We did come up with a job description and some qualifications. It's really important to understand that this isn't necessarily a Band-Aid position, that it really is something where we need to change the system and the way that we do business with kids. So it's not just a position to patch a small hole, it's really, we're asking to really change the overall system and supports for these kids. And I don't know that we want to go through all of this information. It's a little light reading for you tonight. But if you scroll through the next couple of pages here, and feel free to jump in and ask any questions as we go through this. You can see some of the job duties that we had outlined, basically working very closely with the pupil services teams, developing strategies and interventions to help students become more engaged and higher achieving, connecting between school, community, families, doing functional behavioral assessments, maintaining records, another position who could potentially write for grants, and then other duties as maybe needed.
Thank you. We didn't really like the at-risk coordinator position title. It could really be anything. I think when administrative team met, a discussion about students for success sounded better. Coordinator's position, as we get into it, it's not this position that is really going to be away from kids. Okay, I think it's going to have an impact in many ways, and we'll get into that specifically. But we're looking at strengthening school-family connections and supports for kids, looking at research, recommending curriculum that would be good at a Tier 1, 2, and 3 level, meaning for all kids, for kids that have been identified as target groups, and for those really hard to reach kids. Working with administration and teaching staff on understanding individual student issues as it relates to engagement, facilitating relationships, educating and collaborating with community members on important issues including mental health with children in our community. And I believe everyone is hearing that theme, mental health, as we move through this presentation and at other times, and we're going to hit that fairly hard right now. Facilitate staff development activities to promote best practices. Again, grant writing is awesome. You need time. You need somebody well-informed in the areas that we're looking at. And then collecting and organizing data so that we're making really good informed decisions.
Okay, so the overall goal is, again, to close that achievement gap. Many consider student engagement the holy grail of education. If you don't have students who are engaged and invested in their learning, you're not going to see the academic growth and gains that we need to. So really, we're looking to make sure that all students that come out of the Amery School District are prepared for the rigors of college, for tech school, for family, for community, and really looking at the whole person and the whole student needs.
We're going to go through risk factors, and we're going to give you some data that includes both national, state, and our local data. Students who are engaged in their education do better in a variety of indicators. Not going to bore you with that. It just makes sense. But if kids are not engaged, they will not graduate from high school. They will not get jobs, and it's more about making sure that kids come to school and like being in school and like what they're involved with. Kids want to go back to classrooms where they feel comfortable, where people care about them, and where there are relationships there, where they know that they matter. Again, I'm not going to go through this in any length, but there's research to support exactly what engagement is. It's really more than academic performance. It's positive attitude, it's attendance, it's paying attention, it's participating in class, and it's feeling like you're cared and respected for.
All right, so this is some national data, and I'm not going to read through all of this, but as you can take a look through this, just about half of the students are disengaged from school. So it is a nationwide trend. It's concerning. 40 to 60% of low-income students are chronically disengaged. I think, as everybody is aware, we have a very high percentage of low-income students in our district. Student disengagement is a big predictor of high school dropout. And basically, just understanding that student engagement is essential for schools to promote that healthy youth development and academic successment as well.
Okay. We're going to give you some data as well on student-staff relationships, and in order to create healthy relationships at school, you have to have strong student-staff relationships, and we'll be giving you some local data on that.
This next several pages of data is from the Wisconsin Youth Risk Behavior Survey. So this is statewide data. This was just recently released, and we'll kind of go through this quickly. You can take a look at that further when you have more time. Some of the highlights show that about 55% of youth believe their health is excellent. So we have a big majority that don't feel like they're very healthy. We have about 30% of kids who feel like they don't belong at school. We have about 30% of kids that feel they don't have a supportive adult at school. 20% of youth in a physical fight. 11% of youth that are misusing prescription drugs. And 27% of students who reported feeling sad or hopeless for at least 2 weeks. I forget what the whole question says, but basically that are endorsing symptoms of depression. And then the very, very concerning one, 16% of youth that feel that they have seriously considered suicide.
Okay, so that data was from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. It's statewide data. It came out just last month in March. This is our local data, and I guess we're giving you all sets of data to let you know that we really do mirror what's happening nationally and statewide. We did a student belonging survey with 292 freshmen, and so when you look at the numbers represent a total of 292 kids that were surveyed. 58 of them said, sometimes it's true that I feel like I belong in school. 24 kids said, that's usually not true. And 28 kids said, no, that's not true at all. Again, out of those 292 students, I feel like I matter at school. 64 kids said, sometimes I feel like I matter. 40 kids said, usually that's not true. And 24 kids said, that's not true at all. We also did some local staff perception data when we worked on our student engagement in our group. And we took that data and would like to share with you that 64% of staff surveyed felt that they needed to better prepare students for life after high school, whether it was a college or a career. 54% of staff felt like they needed more interventions or support for struggling students. 52% of staff surveyed felt innovative programs were needed to improve student learning. 42% of staff surveyed felt the district needed to increase hands-on project-based learning for kids, and 33% of staff felt that they needed to enhance parenting skills. And we'll talk about how this position would address some of those needs.
So one of our main concerns that we've identified is depression. There's just an alarming number of students that are experiencing depression. It impacts them academically in a number of ways, as well as social emotionally. National research estimates about 10 to 15% of students and teens are depressed at any given time. However, local data has shown that it's a little bit higher here in Amery, and we'll take a look at that. So again, we're going back to Youth Risk Behavior Survey, where about 25% of students are reporting that they felt sad or helpless almost every day for 2 or more weeks, and which caused them to stop doing things that they normally do or things that they enjoy. So 25%, a quarter of our students. And then 16% seriously considered attempting suicide.
Okay. Suicide is the third leading cause of death among people between the ages of 15 and 24, with about 5,000 lives lost each year. Usually, 84% of those are male. Okay. Within our survey, using the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, 6.7% of the kids reported that they attempted suicide within the last 12 months. That's 10 students. Since 2011, the Amery School District had 4 students that committed suicide.
Again, we're going to talk a little bit about the socioeconomic status. Many children who are poor come from homes that lack stability, continuity of care, adequate nutrition, medical needs. As a result, these students are entering school with decreased word knowledge. I'm sure that Mrs. Meyer would be able to say, yes, our students are coming in with less skills than they have in the past. So all of these factors are just making, again, that student population that we have very different than what we've seen before. Anxiety is another big concern that has been identified. Anxiety disorders are the most common class of psychological disorders among adolescents. We have many kids who endorse feelings of anxiety. I don't know that we have the data right here on that. But many kids are feeling really overwhelmed and that there's more going on in their lives that they really can deal with, and they don't know how to handle it all. There was a focus group survey that was done in the high school the last 2 years.
Yes.
And in that focus group, there were two main themes that were found. The number one theme was that students reported feeling anxious and overwhelmed because of too much homework, too many demands, not having the skills to manage that, to juggle it all. And then also identifying that school was not an enjoyable or comfortable place to be.
Student absences are obviously another factor as far as student engagement. If you're gone, you can't engage in education. These are just numbers of the number of habitually truant students that there have been as far as we could report data. So each one of those is a child.
Was that for all across the 4 schools?
It is. And that's the definition of truancy. So certainly absences are a concern. That's a threshold that's rather high, is what I'm going to say.
And this next slide just kind of highlights a few other things, significant impacts that our students are dealing with. Many of them are victims or witnesses to trauma, anger issues, bullying, and then attention deficit disorder, which makes school and attending to academics very difficult, and just other things that make it difficult for children to be successful.
So basically, we really want to talk to you about what a person would do if they were hired within the school district of Amery. Mental health is, again, an issue nationwide. So mental health, student engagement, and student belonging strategies would be used for all students. That's tier 1. For students that fit into a specific group, say anger management, anxiety, et cetera. And then a really targeted group of students where a number of things have not worked and you try to layer on more help. The initiatives are not duplicating anything that we already have in school. We have a PBIS initiative, and we also do a great job with supports for academics. But this is different. We're looking at really mental health issues and connecting families with services that they need and kids with services they need. The work would be done directly with students, as well as trying to look at changing the culture and understanding of the school as far as it relates to where kids are coming from and what issues they're dealing with. It could be a position that would provide case management for students with significant needs, and an opportunity to work to free up principals and counselors for other responsibilities where they've been working with kids with anxiety, working with kids that are truant, assisting administration and staff in creating an environment, again, that provides that social emotional growth that they need, and facilitating, again, needed resources. I work with the support staff, the people services personnel, and the counselors will tell you that they're spending a great deal of time dealing with behavior. They've had more added responsibilities. They're dealing with crises, and they really have not had the time to really do those proactive strategies. Perhaps really just put classroom counseling on the back burner. So we believe that in addition, for a position like this would help them get back to doing those things. I wanted to talk about some initiatives. There's money that is being talked about all over the state that would help with positions like this. I have some good news. I have some sad news. The good news is, on March 18th, they approved that if you hired a school social worker, that there would be categorical aids that would help offset that social worker. That is still, it's passed. School districts don't have to apply. The amount and the certification of that person has not yet been worked out. So that is something that's in the works. So when you look at these dates, this is all really very, very recent data. Tony Evers, obviously our superintendent of public instruction, introduced a bill which was called Assembly Bill 1054, and this was really exciting. And I believe Mr. Cook just shared this with some of the board members. But this bill actually would have allowed us to hire additional pupil services staff, and the bill had indicated that they would pay for half of that person's salary. It did not pass. So that's the sad news that I wanted to share. Instead, the governor introduced, which is, again, good, he introduced the provision for the safety, I have to look at this, the safety schools. And so that was the $100 million that was provided to the Department of Justice. So no longer does it go to education. But are there benefits in that? There absolutely are. Training is going to be a benefit. There's other benefits that will come out of that could be used to help offset some of the things that we're talking about here. Trauma-sensitive school professional development is something that's been passed at the state, and there's monies available for that. And again, with a person, I think that we could effectively and efficiently apply for dollars, use those dollars to help move us forward in this initiative. There's also a new school community collaboration grant, and that will also really be focusing on mental health issues. So there will be some revenues. I was really more excited about Bill 1054, but I'm sad to tell you that that did not pass. Why hire a professional to address student engagement? I know people think that closing the gap is about academics, but really it's more about making sure that students are engaged, they feel safe at school. And again, I think then after those things are taken care of, mental health needs, et cetera, you can work on the academics. So I guess, again, this is no action item. It was really just informational. If you have questions, we're happy to answer.
I guess my comment is, you know, and I'm not a professional in this field at all, but how do we teach kids resilience, and how do we help them to overcome the obstacles and not just, you know, you've heard of now these colleges that are like, we have a safe space for you, and you know, it's like you're in college, like, yeah, you need to, you know, you need to learn some resilience, and so how do we, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Facilitate that and not just make this like, we want to make schools so comfortable for you, so we're going to create this room you can run to anytime you need, you know?
No, and I think that's a fine question. I think there certainly is a range of what that looks like, and when it's a mental health issue and people need professional help, those are the types of things that we're really looking at. So kids, it is real. Kids, I believe 40% of kids now suffer from anxiety, and I don't think I think that needs to be addressed in a healthy way, and kids need to have strategies and ways to make that better. Same is true with many other, you know, mental health issues, but it really is about addressing it in a very professional and forthright way. So.
And I think part of that is that we would want to be looking at some social emotional curriculum at the universal level for all kids. I mean, all kids really should learn those skills on how to deal with anxiety and depression and learn more about that, because it does impact so many people. So some of that universal social emotional curriculum that oftentimes as counselors it's tough for us to get in with all the other crises. And so that's what we're really saying. We really need to get back and get more preventative things in place to give kids skills, and not just to, you know, take care of them in their time of crisis. It needs to go deeper than that.
So we gave you some interesting reading, and hope you'll consider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For your presentation.
Okay, so now we will go back to the action items. The first item on the agenda for action items is the revision of board meeting minutes from 2 years ago, April 18th, 2016.
And I can just mention that these are actually the same minutes that were revised last month, and there was another thing that was found. There was an oath of office that was given at that meeting, and it is on YouTube, and it was just misstated in the minutes and approved, and so this is an update, and it's there on the attachment, and it's indicated for anyone to see. That's when Dale and Chelsea took their oath of office 2 years ago. So the correction is there in the attachment.
And the corrections is the policy of the second reading, too? Is that?
That was done last month, actually. That was in relationship to the pre-expulsion policies,
Okay.
and the board actually updated that last month, and this was found afterwards.
Okay, I will make a motion to accept the April 18th, 2016 revised document as the minutes.
Second.
The next... Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any discussion regarding the revised board meeting minutes from 2 years ago? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next item is the 2018 spring election results.
Okay, the election results are here, and we congratulate Keith Anderson and Char Glenna as the new board members, and these are the official election results. There was a Board of Canvassers meeting held by our clerk, Dale Johnson, and 2 students who had volunteered to be on the Board of Canvassers this year. So the results are posted. There was a clerical error in the city of Amery that missed a couple hundred votes, so that is revised.
And maybe just to mention, the error didn't cause any change in the outcome, but there was an error.
Yep.
Yeah, so, in the city of Amery.
Okay, is there a motion to accept this as the official election results?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next item is Dale Johnson giving the oath of office to the 2 newest board members.
Yeah, so I don't know if we can do this together, or,
Do you want to do it one by one, or?
I don't know how we do it, but
Okay.
are we going to the podium?
Yeah.
Or Wednesday?
Well,
I can't remember.
they do. I did, but then you didn't.
Okay. Yeah, so let me just see. So this is actually today's date, and I guess maybe just to mention the official.
The oath of office, actually, the board positions take effect on the 4th Monday of the month of April, which is next Monday, the 23rd, providing the oath of office has been given on or prior to the 4th Monday.
Which we're doing today. So next Monday, it's official, right? So I will just read this, I guess, once, and we can do it together. And if you'll both state your names. So I,
Charlotte Glenna.
Keith Anderson, who have been duly elected to the Board of Education of the School District of Amery, swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability, so help me God. Dated 23rd of April 2018. So, if we can get their signatures, I guess, right? Twyla's watching, so we can get them official.
Watching you. My pen.
That's it. So we'll get Twyla to notarize those. Okay, welcome.
Thanks.
Welcome. All right.
Thank you. Okay, we already covered the employee insurance plans, and so the next item will be the high school Spanish trip.
Here
Or
this
school
evening,
trips.
I'm here to ask you permission this evening for the Spanish trip, which takes place in the spring of 2019, and then talk about school trips in a more general sense, and you'll see that document on the screen, which is what we're going to run through. The Spanish trip, advisor Cynthia Johnson, Spanish teacher at the high school. The dates of travel through Language and Friendship, and if you didn't know, this is the group we've been using for decades with French and with Spanish. It is proposed Saturday, March 2nd through Wednesday, March 13th. This does straddle spring break in the next school calendar. The estimated price based on 10 to 12 travelers, which would be a fair estimate, I imagine, is $3,745. Right now we have 12 kids that are interested. It's a matter of them stepping up to the plate with money in hand, so to speak, to show that you're really interested. So we're here to ask your permission to move forward with that trip and take that trip in the spring of 2019.
Any idea where it is?
Spain. Sorry, I guess I should have mentioned that. There you go.
Okay.
Good question.
I'll make the motion we approve the 2018-19 high school Spanish trip.
I'll second.
The item that you see on the screen, just so you remember, we have a rotation that's been established on trips. Our Spanish and French trips have rotated for the better part of 30 years, and the band trip has gone every fourth year. We also have trips that run to Europe under two different advisors, Mr. Malberg and Mrs. Relo, and also trips that have gone to Washington, D.C., which Mr. Gould has done that. So rather than simply schedule these trips and have people fight for the dates and make families make tough choices, we establish a rotation. There are no more than 2 trips in any given year, and everyone's been spaced out. No one's overlapping dates. No one's overlapping destinations. We want to make sure our families have every opportunity to make the most educated choices about that, and that's the reason for the rotation, and we're all the way out through 2025, 2026, so you won't hear from me again on this topic for 8 years.
Can I ask, let's say one of these falls through, can something take its place?
Yes.
Okay.
And to answer the obvious question, Language and Friendship is very aware of global safety concerns. We've already been in correspondence with them about the Spanish trip, and we were in constant correspondence with them about the French trip. It's part of the world that they work in, and we know full well that things are happening in the world like they never have before.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept this as is with the option of if something has to fall through, that they can replace it with a different one.
Okay, I'll second that motion. If there's any discussion.
Is that on, I don't know if it's on the agenda to vote for.
I think it was just the agenda for the Spanish trip,
Spanish
right?
trip is what's been on the
And
agenda.
this is just a proposed.
Oh, this was just the proposed.
You've seen this
Got
once
it.
before.
Yeah, this
is a
every
reminder.
So then next year,
It'll come back again
you'll
for-
come back
I'll
again.
come back
for
again
different-
for French
Okay.
and come back again for...
I think we were
Yes.
confused because you said you wouldn't hear us from you again until 2025.
Every time we take a trip out of the country, you'll definitely hear from me. But the rotation, we're set.
Okay.
Good.
All right, so is there any discussion, further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, next. The next item is the curriculum order request by Ms. Schock.
It is that time of year that we request purchases for curriculum for next year. But I did want to tell you a little bit or remind you about the cycle that we currently have. And so, That's perfect, Cheryl. Thank you. We are currently on an 11-year cycle, and we've revised it so we have this coming year, the 18-19 school year is at the very top, and we have applied arts. Year one, we've split that into two, and so tonight we'll be asking you for purchases for ag, foreign language, phy-ed, guidance, and tech ed. And then next year is math, pre-K 5. We did a little switch here because we actually a year ago requested that we do a 2-year for our PK 5 math. We wanted more time to research and have, we have got a couple curriculums that were out there that are revising their materials, and we wanted time to be able to get in on the newest and best. And so we're taking 2 full years. And then we would start the 2021 with the applied arts year 2 and right back into the rotation. So just a reminder of how that all works. Any questions on that? Okay. So curriculum areas always know a year in advance of spending the money. So they spent, the applied arts year 1 spent this whole year doing their research, looking at essential standards, looking what materials are out there before they made their requests. Then also, because they are in this curriculum cycle, then we have the curriculum checklist, which is, there's 2 parts to that. A new class, which we also have done this year, Mr. Derfler, it's mainly high school, but we also have had middle school, propose a new class. We have what's called the Curriculum Oversight Committee, a new, either a new class or instructional materials. As you can see, it always starts with the curriculum committee. They get approval from their committee. Then they go to the building principal. It comes to the administrative team. It goes to the Curriculum Oversight Committee, which is made up of all representation from all of the buildings. The 4 principals, Mrs. Wesley and Mr. Kupta, are all on that committee. And so anything that we bring to you, like tonight when we're bringing to you the requests, has gone through all of those steps one by one. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. And we also have a new class tonight that back in January, we came and asked for AP Psych for it to be considered a new class. You approved that. It went into the high school catalog, and enough students wanted to take that class. So tonight, it's part of the curriculum request for textbooks. So it's kind of cool to see that whole process turn out. So, any questions on how curriculums and textbooks get requested? All right. We will go forward then. The first thing I'm going to do is go to the consolidation. And every year we have things that get used up. So we call that consumables. Mainly that happens at Leon Elementary and at the intermediate school. So it's things that a student gets, they have it for the year, they fill it all out, it's used up, and so the next year, of course, then we have to order new. So that's part of the curriculum order, and for next year, it is a total of $26,391.23. And that can just wait, and you can do it all together or independently, whichever you want to do. But that we'll get your approval. And then, Cheryl, if you could go to the curriculum order itself. This is the overview. And we have a grand total of $148,370.31. And as I told you before, we have several curriculum areas: ag, guidance, phy-ed, tech ed, foreign language, that AP psychology, which is the new class. And we have a couple of people that are going to help me present that. And so how about if we start with ag and Mr. Derfler.
Okay. I have to get that on my screen here.
It would be a tab on the bottom, Cheryl, if you would go to the ag. Oh, okay, or maybe that one just scrolls up.
Yeah, it converts to a PDF from the spreadsheet, so we have to scroll all the way through and find it.
Okay, Derek Meyer, that is, at the high school, does a lot of online instruction. So you'll note that first item there is online courses, or that's tech ed. We're looking for.
Keep going.
It's a little further down. One more. I lied. One more. There you go.
There we go.
So you'll note there the quantity is 130, which means you can have 130 different students over the course of a variety of classes that are going to use that software. That's all online. That's one-to-one technology advantage. He has a variety of things here that are used in the middle portion there, small animal, vet science. We are probably the only school of our size to do an advanced vet science, which basically means at the end of the time you are ready to become a vet tech, and all of that material is devoted to that. There are two items there at the bottom. There's prescription for the subscription, I should say, for videos, and then there's a document camera in there that he's used for the online courses. So all of that combined is the grand total of $13,513. That's ag.
Okay, and one right above that, Cheryl, is guidance, and Kate is going to talk about guidance, and this is it's K-12, so it would involve all 4 buildings.
Okay, so as you can see on the top, it's kind of organized by building level. A little bit of what we were talking about before as far as social emotional curriculum. I don't know if you want me to go through each of these things, if you want to take a look at it, and if you have questions, I will certainly try my best to answer them for you. At the intermediate school, you'll see the YMCA camp. That's a larger purchase. That is the 5th grade environmental trip. So part of the funding comes out of that. And then further down into the middle school, you'll see some more social emotional curriculum, 2nd step, some bully prevention curriculum, executive functioning, the life skills training, levels 2 and 3 at the middle school. We also are asking for a portable PA speaker system. We're trying to do a lot of large group instruction, and it's really hard to instruct 115 kids at the same time when they can't hear the instructor. And then moving on to the high school, they're asking for Youth Frontiers purchases for the next couple of years. Sean, is that the
Youth Frontiers is the team building activity we do with sophomores on the day of ACT. We bring them out to WAPO and do a pretty enormous team building activity with the group that we bring in. It's fantastic, but it's costly.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions on any of the items?
Okay, thanks, Kate. And next, I will go ahead and talk for Fayed, and that should be the next one up. And Mr. Shu is our chairperson, and so his name is on there, but it really represents all of the intermediate, middle, and high school. The elementary actually did not request any materials this year. And so at the intermediate school, it is the bowling sets. We have been borrowing those for several years, and now we are going to purchase our own. At the middle school, the heart rate system, and also a multi-purpose lifting bar for the back squats. And at the high school, they're really looking at hand grip, Olympic weights, and dumbbell sets.
What is the optic strapless heart rate system?
Yeah, and I'm going to let Mr. Benson talk to you about
That's a system where you put out an interactive TV and every kid gets a code, and then they're doing their activities for the day, and as they run past the sensor, it will show them exactly where their heart rate is, and it counts everything, and it's an amazing system because the kids can wear it, and it immediately when they walk by, it shows them all the data that they're getting. It's something that they're pretty excited about, and I'm really going to I have not actually seen it in action other than what I'm being told after their research. But so
would that be used specifically in gym class?
Yeah, be used in Phy Ed class.
What's in a bowling set?
The bowling set is actually just regular bowling pins, and it has a roll-out lane. We borrowed it from Eau Claire. Can't think of the name of the bowling alley in Eau Claire. They've been very gracious and let us borrow it for free. Our teachers went and picked it up and brought it home. And there's 10 sets of them. And we roll them out into the gym. And it's like real bowling. And the students love it.
And that's kind of a padded gutter, so the ball will stay within the lane, but they learn the bowling.
How do the pins get picked up?
The kids pick them up.
Reset them.
Yep.
But we've been
and then they rotate, so there's always somebody down resetting the pins and somebody ready to bowl and somebody on deck. And
all the years of having to drive it back and forth to Eau Claire with time and gas and the time of the staff alone, so they're really excited to be able to try and buy their own sets. And the ones that we're borrowing, they've
gotten old.
Yeah, they've seen their day.
If you want to see how the pins get set up, just come to my house in the basement. That's what we do to keep the 4-year-old busy while the 6-year-olds are knocking them down.
There you go.
Okay, and then next we'll go to Alan Carlson with Tech Ed. One more. There we go. Thanks, Cheryl.
All right. There's two different orders. Myself, I have an order for my middle school curriculum, and Mr. Ganji has an order that he'll use for his high school curriculum. So I'll start at the top here. And you'll see this item on the high school level as well. We're going to expand our capacity in 3D printing. We're going to go with a Da Vinci 3D printer in this case, and that'll be the same at the high school. We're going to add a engraver module, which will be able to do some engraving and have kids experience that as well. The next item, it's the biggest item that we have on there. It's a shop bot. At the middle school, I'm having a desktop version of this. At the high school, it will be a full-size version. It's a CNC router. So it'll give kids that experience of a little bit of machining experience. It'll give them that experience with programming, the XY coordinates and that type of thing. So that'll be a really good life skill to teach kids. So we decided we wanted to have the same brand at the middle school and the high school so that the instruction can carry up to the high school level as well. In my middle school curriculum, I've added a set of intro to technology textbook in that curriculum to update that part of it. If you scroll down, I've added I want to add in my curriculum a set of programmable and flyable drones. These are mini drones. They're probably about this size or so. Kids can either learn how to pilot them, and we'll be able to program flights with them, well, with the Tinker coding software, so they'll be able to program a course. You'll be able to measure it, and so there's lots of programming and coding experience with that. And the kits should be self-containable with a case and everything. So. And then we can look at Mr. Ganji's purchase if we scroll down a little bit here. He's adding textbooks for both small engines and our welding program that's been so successful. That's what he's adding there. And you'll see again that ShopBot CNC router. And it says combined with middle school. We got one quote for both schools, but we split that out between middle and high school for this purpose. And then you'll see at the bottom his 3D printer is at the bottom of that as well. So I think that's everything.
A quick question under ShopBot, up towards the top of ShopBot, there is travel expenses on that one?
Yep, we included some travel expenses to get some training to learn how to use this equipment, because this is going to be brand new to our district and to Mr. Gandy and myself, so.
Okay.
And that'll just be the beginning. There'll be lots of learning along the way as well as we get the experience, but that should get us started with that.
Do the drones have cameras on them or videos and everything?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you could put together a cool video on how maybe a scavenger hunt from a drone's perspective, and you could put something together like that to have kids try to solve that. That would be a fun project. Cool. I think that's all.
Okay.
Is tech ed the high school tech ed class? Is that the class that's building the house?
Yes, it's building trades. It'll run every term next year. First block, kids will start working at 7:45 and they'll finish work at about 9:45. And we're taking applications right now for kids that are interested. And those who are interested will be OSHA trained, which is get you on site, trained, fully up to snuff here in the first week of May. We'll have about a dozen kids.
So these tech ed purchases are not, they don't have anything to do with the
They
house?
won't. No, none of this will affect what takes place there.
Okay.
Good question, Neil. Thank you, Ellen. And then next, we're going to go all the way to the top, Cheryl, and we have foreign language. And Mr. Benson is going to talk about the middle school. Actually, he's going to talk about middle school and high school, but the first part of it, and then Mr. Dörfler will take over.
Sure. At the middle school, currently have a classroom set of Spanish texts, and they're in very good shape, so we're not looking at replacing those. Mr. Hawkinson primarily puts together his curriculum from outside resources at this time. He's actually looking for pretty small purchases right now, about $1,200 for just the Spanish. He's looking at some concentration game board sets. You look at the price of $174 per set, but you have to understand that set is good for about 30 kids. And then in addition to that, and that's using the common words, and they have to identify them with the Spanish name of the object they're looking at. He's looking for some other traditional type of gaming things that he can use with the kids to practice their words. And then he's looking for some auto harps. And believe it or not, they actually still kind of sing and dance and play the auto harp as they're learning their words and the cadences and things. The rest of that purchase that you see there under Mr. Hawkinson is a district-wide K-12 ELL. That ELL stands for English Language Learners. And Mr. Hawkinson has done primarily most of the teaching right now for students that come to our district and do not speak any English or limited English. And so he's looking for additional resources and some textbooks, 3 to 4 copies at each grade level so that he could use with the students as he's teaching them how to speak English and listen to English and write English. And so what you see there for the textbooks are what he's asking to be able to accomplish that right now.
The last remaining parts are the high school French portion and the high school Spanish portion. You'll see there under Wanda Rimstad's name, we are looking at online and in some cases actual hard copy textbooks for levels 1, 2, and 3. And for Cynthia, we're looking at also textbooks for 1, 2, and 3. When we get past 3, they start supplementing with their own creations, and it looks very different than what the textbook versions for 1, 2, and 3 look like.
So the total for French is $11,884, and the total for Spanish is $7,526.
If I'm reading the spreadsheet correct, but orally would probably know better. Yes, I think you're right.
Well, the grand total is the 28. So,
And I'm just looking at high school, not.
Well, the grand total, you would have to subtract the Dave Hawkins
Then you would
piece,
take
which would
that-
get you
right.
down to about 24. 11 plus 7 plus 3 gets you to
Yeah.
21,
11 for the
22.
Spanish, or
So
French, and 7 for the Spanish.
Right.
for the high school portion, it's the 11,000, the 7,000, and the 3,000 numbers. So whatever that adds up to, 21, 22,000.
Yeah.
I see, they're about equal then.
I'm looking at page 73. I'm not sure what page is up there. Yes, same page.
When do middle school students take Spanish? When is that?
Well, students in our district start taking Spanish
In third grade.
in third grade. Mr. Hawkinson also teaches those sections. So a lot of the materials that he's purchasing and a lot of the things he puts together, it starts at third grade and fourth grade, and then it jumps up to eighth grade. Right now, I don't know if we want to get into the French options middle school, but right now we're looking at trying to perhaps expose kids to both languages as more of a world language exposure. We're looking at that and how that would work, so that students would have a little bit more of an exposure to both of them before they make that decision at the high school. So, but yeah, so we started at about third grade. And they're rapid fire down there. You should see it. It's pretty fun to watch. They really enjoy that class at third and fourth grade.
Do they do it in third and in fourth?
Yep.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
and it's is it for a few weeks or something?
No, it's all year.
It's all year. Okay.
Mhm.
And does AIM participate in that though, or
They don't, because it didn't fit into their schedule.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not
so
every day. It's not every day all year, but it's.
They actually, the AIM kids do an online version of the Spanish. It's once a week.
Once a week all year. Yeah.
Or it could be a rotation of once every 6 days if it's,
and then in the middle school in eighth grade, is it?
It's a 6-week-long
It's
class.
one of those. Okay.
One of the rotationals. We did have her at 7th and 8th grade at one point, but right now it's at 8th grade.
And
We
then
we rotated it down earlier to
is
the.
foreign language required at the high school?
Not required. It's highly suggested if you want to go to post-secondary. Some kids do all 5 levels, some kids do 2 and be done, and some kids do none. And some kids wait until sophomore year to start. So it depends on the kid.
But the majority do.
Majority do too. And we've had Spanish and French as a dual option setting for 50 years.
Is this, is the curriculum cycle like the TRIPS cycle where it's just planned out, but it can change? I mean, we just happen to be on applied arts this year.
right. And it actually hasn't changed very much, but we did request that math got a second year, so that we did bring up the, otherwise, year 1 and year 2 of the applied arts would be right next to each other, but we asked for a second year, so we're in between. Okay? Then we just have one more thing, and that's at the very end, Cheryl, all the way to the end is the AP Psych. That's the new class that will be offered, so we had to purchase textbooks.
Okay, AP Psychology, we asked the students if you were interested in AP Psychology. We had 40 students said they were interested. Not all 40 will get there. We'll probably have mid-20s, hence the order for 25. The first portion is for case studies. Those are not textbooks. And then the second portion, where it says Bedford, Freeman, and Worth, those are textbooks. AP textbooks tend to run on the pricier side. They're big, thick, heavy hardcovers. And the total price there you see at the bottom of $4,900. This is a direct connection to our strategic plan. We're looking at increasing our AP number of test takers, and we will probably have about 25 more test takers with AP Psych. That'll push us well over 100 test takers, and that would surpass everyone in the conference with the exception of New Richmond, who has twice as many students as us. They usually give about 200. So we're heading in the right direction.
Can I say something really quick or
Sure.
ask a question? For AP, weren't they doing AP Spanish and AP French at one point instead of
We've never
having
had-
number 5 or
We've
number 4?
never had AP Spanish and French, but we're talking about it. I had a conversation with both Cynthia and Wanda last week about making that change. And I don't know in my time here we've ever had a kid take either of those exams, but we do have the Global Scholar Certificate, which gets them all sorts of accolades when they're applying to college. and that's directly connected to foreign language. We haven't had AP.
But there was some discussion about the grade weighted at those levels. I think maybe that's what she's doing.
I'm not.
Grade weighted towards the.
Well, we haven't had grade weighted in quite some time. We've had the Laude scale.
Laude scale.
The Laude, yeah.
That's what
But they're on there. If it's level 4 or level 5, it's the second highest tier of a Laude point. The highest tier are all the AP courses. And the reason they're at the top tier is because they all have to be audited through the College Board. So we know full well that that curriculum must be rigorous and taught as such.
Okay.
And there are 7 and soon to be 8 courses at that level. We just changed. We didn't add AP Chem. We changed its title from Advanced Chem, went through the audit. Now we're calling it AP Chem. We've always had it. We just haven't called it that.
Have you had kids take the AP test, even with?
In AP Chem, we actually have a strange phenomenon over the last 3 years. We have kids that are self-studying and taking tests that we don't even have classes in that area. And they're doing quite well. And some of them are leaving here with 16, 18, 20 credits of coursework because some have self-studied and gotten 4s and 5s. And we're going to have that again this year because I know a couple of kids that are doing that and taking 4 and 5 and 6 tests that they haven't had a class in. They're just self-studying.
So that brings us to the conclusion of the consumables and the curriculum order for the 18-19 school year. The total of both comes to $174,761.54.
You said 170?
74,000, yep. The two together, the curriculum requests and the consumables.
Okay, I was just looking at the...
No, they go together. That all comes out of the same budget.
I feel that you've answered all of the questions. I'll make the motion to accept both of those together.
It's a separate document for the consumer.
It was the first one, yep.
It was the first one that I brought up.
Okay.
So
The
I'll make the motion
workbooks.
to do both together as presented.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Thanks for all your research on it, guys.
Yes, they've been working hard all year.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's important to note that there are things that we turn down.
Yeah, I should bring that up. That actually, when we have each of the curriculum areas, when they study, when they're up for materials adoption, we ask them for absolutely what do you need, what would you like, and what would you dream for. And so there was more things that they asked for that were not approved because it was over our budget. So everyone got what they needed, but what they would wish for and dream for is on hold. If there was money at some point in time, those would be possible purchases, but we would come here and ask for them. But a couple of the dreams were quite big. One was a pool. The FIAD people asked for a pool, a climbing wall, and then in the tech ed department, it was
They wanted to redo the welding lab.
for $575,000.
It sounded really pricey until someone said pool, then it was cheap.
That was cheap.
On the climbing wall side, that one actually came in relatively maybe doable, but we're looking at perhaps having to write a grant. And if we could get grant money to come in to pay for it, or a large portion of it, we would be one of the few. In the middle school facility would hold it by far the best because of its size in the gym. But if we were able to do that, we would also look at being able to rent that out to other school districts to come in as a cost to come in and use it. But those are the kind of things that they come up real creative ideas. It's just trying to say, well, okay, this is what we can afford right now, but let's continue to look at how we could maybe do some of them. But
Okay.
Next on the list is the appointment of the Wisconsin Association of School Board Correspondent and Convention Delegate. But those are two different positions, correct? They're not the same.
Yes, and WASB correspondent. I think that's, actually, we're looking for the CISA convention delegate. So if you, they need the appointment of the CISA, they call it an annual convention. It's on June 4th. It's required by statute that every CISA has a convention, and there is a WASB correspondent and convention delegate, but May 21st is the deadline that they need the CISA convention delegate, so you don't have to do it as an action item, but you can appoint someone, be it a current board member or future board member, for that June 4th CISA convention, they call it.
Oh, so this isn't the annual January convention? Okay, so
No.
that's...
So this is something we could do next month?
Well, no, because
No,
the
it has to
board
be
meeting's
before
on
it.
the 21st, and
The board meeting is on
May 21st.
May 21st, okay, and we have,
And
That's the deadline.
That's the deadline for actually submitting, so,
Okay, so
okay.
yeah.
Are you interested?
Not necessarily.
June 4th is
Aaron?
the date of the
you like
CISA convention.
See how it goes?
It's just this one time.
What-
Erin said she would be interested. She did.
And
I
the
didn't
CISA
twist her arm, I
Where is
promise.
this?
It's in Turtle Lake at
Yeah.
the CISA building.
Okay.
And you get to meet other people from CISA, other board members.
It's very informative. It really is.
I will make a motion to appoint Erin, the correspondent and convention delegate for this.
I second.
Congratulations.
And if for some reason she has a conflict, somebody else
someone
can
else
go
can.
in your place. I know I've stepped in for Darren before in the past, where he couldn't make it, so, okay. All right, is there any discussion or questions regarding the delegate position? Okay, all in favor of appointing Erin? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The next one is the district positions recommendations.
Okay, and we talked about, you saw the presentation regarding the student success positions. Our administrative team has discussed a student success position or at-risk coordinator to assist students in grades K through 5 and 6 through 12. So 2 buildings for each position to help students with coordinating services for mental health and the whole gamut, the whole array of different social and emotional needs for students. And we believe that we have the funds within the referendum-approved money, and along with the, as Cheryl said, the one grant we thought would be available, that bill didn't pass, but there is a different grant I saw online today for school districts to apply for $10,000 to $75,000. We'll apply for $75,000. So essentially, one of the positions may be substantially or completely covered. So that's a recommendation for 2 student success coordinators for the school district.
Well, I'll make a recommendation for 2 positions. I think you heard how important it was, and I think we all know of the issues there are nationwide, and especially with schools.
So when would these positions be starting?
We would post them and start next school year.
When would we know if there was grant available and how much?
They set the deadlines. I just saw the application come out.
I think it also is kind of dependent on the qualifications of the individual. So, for example, there would be reimbursement if the person were a social worker. There also is categorical aid if the person is a school psychologist. So, for example, our school psychologists, 85% of their salaries are categorically aided. So a lot of that depends on people who are applying.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion?
I second that.
Right, So I previously made a motion and then seconded. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any other district positions recommendations, or are we ready to go to closed session?
You can go to closed session. If you'd like to act on the personnel that was discussed in closed session already, you can do that.
Oh.
The two resignations and
So we have a couple of resignations. They happen throughout the year. Then we also have, I'm happy to announce that Tom Olson's been offered the position of Director of Transportation and Grounds for 2018-19, and we have a French teacher who accepted the position, a new teacher out of college, Miss Miranda Geiger, who we interviewed and has accepted the full-time French position.
Okay, is there a motion to accept the personnel action?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, no. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I'll.
State what it is.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn into closed session so we can consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility in order to take personnel action pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.851C.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed going into closed session? All right, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.